The making of rock and roll is filled with crazy stories and more than a few inside jokes. Here's the story about a song that started out as one of those jokes and ended up becoming a huge hit for Bachman Turner Overdrive, a song that was never actually intended to be heard in public. You ain't seen nothing yet. If you like this episode, give it a like at the end and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, few bands have enjoyed the kind of longevity and chart-topping success that B.T.O have, making their own particular mark on the rock timeline. They're even the reason that writer Stephen King chose the pen name of Richard Bachman. He happened to be listening to B.T.O when his publisher asked him to come up with a quick pseudonym. This Canadian band from Winnipeg, Manitoba, was founded by three brothers: Randy and Tim Bachman on guitars and vocals, Robbie Bachman on drums, along with C.F. Turner on bass. Randy Bachman left the Guess Who in 1973 due to personal differences and turned to his brothers to create a new outfit, first called Brave Belt, an outfit that included former Guess Who singer Chad Allen. Turner came to the fold on Neil Young's recommendation. Young and Randy Bachman were longtime friends at that point. Eventually, a new band, minus Allen, was named after the Bachman brothers, Turner, and the word overdrive, a word they felt perfectly summed up their sound. The way that B.T.O was even signed to a record deal involves a strange twist of fate. Randy Bachman had emptied his own bank account to fund recording their demo tapes and sent those tapes to over 20 labels, but every one of them passed on what they heard. The tapes had also been sent to Mercury Records to the attention of Charlie Fosh, vice president of A&R, who mistakenly did not throw the band's tape away with a bunch of other tapes that had piled up on his desk while away on a business trip. He intended to just trash them all and start fresh, but later found B.T.O's on the floor and decided to give it a listen. He called Randy Bachman, and they were signed to Mercury by virtue of the fact that their tape didn't make it all the way to the trash can. B.T.O put out their first two albums with the original lineup of the Bachman brothers and Turner, but shortly after the release of B.T.O 2, Tim Bachman left the band. Reportedly, brother Randy, a Mormon at the time, had some pretty strict rules on the road. Lessons learned from watching his former bandmates in the Guess Who spiral out from a cliché rock and roll lifestyle. And Tim didn't exactly adhere to those rules. That, coupled with missing out on a growing family of his own at home, and brother Tim called it quits shortly after the release of their second album. Blair Thornton, a guitarist from Vancouver, joined the band as his replacement, and this new lineup of Robbie and Randy Bachman, Turner, and Thornton recorded their most successful album, Not Fragile, which was released in September of 1974. This third album with the newly revamped lineup went all the way to number 1 in Canada and in the U.S., and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet proved to be a big hit single. But it wasn't even originally included in the songs to be considered for the track listing. Randy Bachman wrote it, and it was intended to be a kind of a joke song aimed at their other brother Gary, who at the time was managing the band. Gary Bachman had a speech impediment, and Randy put the stutter on it specifically to send to Gary and Gary only, just having some brotherly fun. He and the band were already recording the album, and he said that he had an instrumental song written, so he came up with some lyrics for it out of the blue and stuttered through it completely with the idea of Gary getting a kick out of it. Further, he said that with this in mind, Gary would be the only person in the world with a copy of that recording at all. But much like how the band themselves were signed to Mercury because of a happy accident, this song's intended audience was about to change drastically, from one brother to millions of people worldwide. 8 songs for the track listing of Not Fragile were presented to Fosh, who came to the studio in Seattle where the band were recording. But Fosh candidly told the band that it seemed to be missing a certain magic and asked if there were any other songs to add. Randy Bachman told Fosh, "We have this one song, but it's a joke. I'm laughing at the end. I sang it on the first take. It's sharp, it's flat, I'm stuttering on it to do this thing for my brother. But Fosh loved it, and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet was added to the track listing for the album. In fact, Randy thought it was sung so poorly, he tried to re-record it, but he gave up because he said that the re-recording sounded like some weird Sinatra ripoff, and just kept the original. It was sent to radio stations, who played it to the point that it was released as a single, much to the amazement of Randy Bachman, who couldn't believe people would want to hear it. They did. It went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and it charted in several other countries too, a bona fide hit. As for the lyrics, Randy Bachman said, "You ain't seen nothing yet" is something his wife used to tell him. The lyrics were really just written off the cuff, with the only intention to have something to stutter to for the joke that he was playing on Brother Gary. It doesn't take long for Randy to get to the stutter in the lyrics of the first verse and the chorus. "I met a devil woman. She took my heart away. She said I've had it coming to me, but I wanted it that way. I think that any love is good lovin', so I took what I could get. And she looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, 'You ain't seen nothing yet. Baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet.'" For the record, it was his wife at the time who talked reason into him when she pointed out, as he was cringing at hearing the song on the radio, that, hey, at least it was on the radio. For Gary Bachman, the song turned out to be a real watershed moment too. Randy Bachman has said that as soon as it became a hit, Gary stopped stuttering. B.T.O released 3 more albums on the heels of Not Fragile, and Randy Bachman surprised the band and their fans when he decided to leave B.T.O in 1977 to pursue other interests, while they were still signed to Mercury. They reunited in the mid-'80s, and B.T.O has undergone many stages of hiatus and reforming since then. Along the way, there were sibling lawsuits over using the name B.T.O between the brothers. And sadly, Robbie Bachman passed away in January of 2023. And just a few months later, in April, Tim Bachman passed away. Randy Bachman and his son, musician Tal Bachman, continue on as B.T.O. Due in part to the success of You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, Bachman Turner Overdrive became one of the most successful rock bands to come out of Canada in the 70s. To date, the band have sold over 30 million albums worldwide, and Randy Bachman has said that he learned something about songwriting when all was said and done with this song. And it's that sometimes, no matter how you go about it or what you intended for a song, in his words, the magic is out of your hands. I'm Janda, and this has been Behind the Song. Special thanks as always to Christian Lane for the music you hear on these podcast episodes. Check us out on TikTok, and you can find me on the air weekdays from 9 to 2 Central at 97.1 FM The Drive in Chicago and at WDRV.com. On the way, much more classic rock and roll.